Hey, this is Ramanuj and welcome to the episode 6 of our Spring Boot and Microservice tutorial series. Well, in our last videos, we have seen a lot of things. We've learned how to build a Spring Boot application. Also, we have discussed on one of the most important topic in Spring is dependency injection. Well, in this video, we are going to connect our application to a real database. So we're going to use a MySQL database and we are going to connect our application to that MySQL database. Well, as of now, if you look at our code, we have the repository layer wherein we have used an array list as our storage. So now we are going to replace this with a real database. For this, what are the things that we need? The first and the most important thing, we need a database to be installed on our system, right? So we do have a MySQL server installed on my machine. If you don't have, please go to the official website of MySQL and do follow the steps and do the installation. So let's have a quick look on my MySQL database. So right now, if I go, this is my MySQL workbench, and here I would be creating a simple database. So we can use create database and give a name product_db. That's all. Let's execute this. And yep, the database got created. That's all. We are not going to do anything here. Let's go back and let's modify our application. The first and most important thing, in order to connect to the database, we are going to use something called Spring Data JPA. Well, what is that Spring Data JPA? Well, you need to understand JPA stands for Java Persistence API. What is the purpose of JPA? When you want to store some data to a database or retrieve some data from the database, what we generally need to do? If we are using relational database, we use a language called SQL or SQL. So in that we write certain queries and we fetch the data. Well, in a typical Java application, Java has a concept called JDBC, which is also known as Java Database Connectivity. So with the help of JDBC, we can actually execute those queries from Java and we can fetch the data and process the data. In this case, what you need to do, you have to take care of the core low-level SQL stuff. You have to write the queries, you have to write all the logic to insert the data and so on. Now JPA simplified it. So you as a Java developer, you focus on your Java code rather than SQL, low-level SQL code. And that's what we are going to use. On top of JPA, we do have something called Spring Data JPA. Spring Data JPA is the Spring implementation of the Java Persistent API. And it makes it super easy that you as a Java developer rarely need to write something. Well, I want to show you. So let's get started. First of all, what we are going to do is we are going to add certain dependency to our application. Let's get started. So what are the dependencies that we need? We need two very important dependency. One is the Spring Data JPA, and another dependency that we need is the database driver, which in our case is MySQL driver. So these are the two essential dependencies that we need to add to our project right now. So let's quickly add it. How do you add any new dependency to the project? So well, you need to open the POM XML file. Over here, we will scroll down and we'll see the dependencies section. So out of these dependencies, so we have a simple way, right? If you are using IntelliJ IDEA Ultimate Edition, so you get a very simple way to add any dependency. So we have an option called Add Starter. So how do you do? Just click on Add Starter and let's search for JPA. So automatically you see the Spring Data JPA is there. Let's quickly add it. Okay, so it got added. You would be able to see that Spring Data JPA. Well, if you don't have IntelliJ IDEA Ultimate, no worries. What you can do, right? So quickly, I would give you a trick. So you have this Spring Starter web. Just copy that Spring Starter web and just paste it over here and just write Spring Starter Data JPA. That's all. Right, that's all right. So you can do it. And the next dependency that I want to add is MySQL. So I would go to Add Starter and search for MySQL, and you'll be able to see that MySQL driver. So I'll be able to add it. Well, you can see the MySQL driver got added. So if you can't edit in that way, so no problem, you can just type exit the same thing, or you can go to a website called MVN repository and you can search for MySQL here, and from here you can take the latest MySQL connector J, right? So whatever the latest version is, you can copy from here. Either this way or that way, this will work. So yes, after that, make sure to do a Maven update or sync. How do you do this? Just right click anywhere on the POM XML file and make sure to go to Maven section over here. And there's an option called sync project. You can see sync project. Just click on sync project. So it will download all the dependencies that you have recently mentioned. Okay, so we are good to go right now. Let's get started. So we would be doing it in step by step. The first step is to define our model or entity. Okay, so let's go to our code and let's go to the model. So we have a model right now over here. We have certain properties and we have created the getter, setters, constructor, and all such things. Now what we want is we want to create an entity. So what is an entity? Whenever you are considering a class as an entity, that means a database table will get created or the class will get associated or mapped to a database table. So what I need to do, I want to have a table called product and I want to store different products in that table. So for that, the very simple thing that I need to do is to write an entity annotation here. So entity, the moment you write entity annotation, you can see that's coming from Jakarta persistence. That is the JPA package, right? So you can see that's coming from import Jakarta persistence.entity. So that's not coming from Spring Framework, that's coming from the JPA dependency. Let's quickly go here and you can see there's an error, right? So that's an error it's showing. So what's the reason? So whenever you are marking a class as an entity, you also need to mark or you also need to mention what should be the primary key for this table. And how do you do this? By writing one more annotation at ID, which is again coming from Jakarta persistence. And look at this right now, it's fine. And I have a class called product. With respect to that, a table will get created in my database and the name of the table would also be product. If you want to have a different name, that's pretty much optional. You can write one annotation table here and you can say name if you want to have a different name. So you can have it, right? So product, you want to have a name called products. That's cool, right? So you can have it. It's not a problem. And next is you want to do some customization here, right? So what happens? Automatically we have a string data type. So in database, we don't have something called string. Rather, we have something called varchar. So automatically your JPA will understand, okay, there's a string and I need to create a column of type varchar. If you want to modify, right? Let's suppose I want to mention the size of my varchar. So I can do this by using one more annotation called column. And we can add a couple of things, right? So we want the size, which is length. So length, I can reduce. The name of a product, I want that it shouldn't go beyond 100. And other options like I won't accept null. So nullable false. It is equivalent of writing a constraint called not null. Next, right, if you want to have anything else, right? So for description, you want to have something, for price, you want to have something, for quantity, you want to have something. Yes, you can customize. You can also give your custom names. So what happens? The name of this column would be name only. So if you want, no, I don't want name, I want product underscore name. You can do that. You can just write name is product underscore name. So you can do all this customization. So in our next episode, we'll talk about all the customization and so on, right? So for time being, I just want to keep it very simple. That's done, right? So we have defined our entity class. That's cool. Now what next I need to do? Well, my entity class is ready. I want to create operations around this entity. So I have this entity and I want to create certain database operations, CRUD operations around this entity. How do you do this? Well, for that, you know what you need to do? We have our product repository previously we have created and I would modify this, right? I have a lot of method here and I would actually remove all of them. I would clear this and I would change it to an interface. Look at this very carefully. I'm changing my previous repository. You can see I've changed my previous repository, which was a class, to an interface, and I've removed all the functions or all the methods. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to extend another, interface whose name is JPA repository. Okay, that's again coming from, you can see that's coming from Spring framework. Okay, so that is coming from the Spring data JPA. So in this, I'm going to pass to generic. What are the generic types that I'm going to pass? First is for which entity we want this repository. So I'm going to write product, which is my entity. This is my entity product. And next thing that I need to pass is the type of my primary key. So what is my primary key? ID. And what is the type of the primary key? Is long. Then I need to provide here product and long. That's cool, right? So that's everything. I don't need to write any other things. I'm fine. And that's pretty much everything. And what I'll do right now, I would go to my service and I would change my service implementation according to this implementation. So behind the scene, what will happen, Spring will create an implementation for this, and I will discuss about all the behind the scene picture. We'll decode everything in our next episode. Next, what we are going to do, I would just go to my product service implementation. So last time we created one extra class that is of no use. I would delete that. That is just for making you understand. So we have our product service implementation, and I have my product repository. I don't need the scanner. Remove that. And I have my product repository. Neither I need all such things, neither I need this primary annotation. These are not required. This we have done during our last episode just for debugging purposes. And next, what we are going to do, we have already auto-add our repository. So what I need to do, I have to call the methods that is being provided by my repository. So our first method here, I have add product, which is expecting a product, and I need to make a call to the product method. So I have right now, I don't have. So if you look at my product repository, let's have a quick look on my product repository. So you can see there are no methods here, but I would tell you there are certain methods. Okay, so what are the methods? There is one method called save. There is one method called find by ID. There's one method called find all, and there are methods like delete by ID and so on. But from where these methods are coming? Well, these methods are coming because we have extended this JPA repository. Well, we'll talk about everything. For time being, just understand there are certain methods, save, find by ID, find all, and so on. And I'm going to call those methods, right? How do you call this? So I want to save a product. So all that I need to call is product repository dot save, and I would call this product. That's all. Similarly, we have, I want to get list of all the products. So just now I showed you there's a function called find all. So I would just call this find all. So it's going to return me the list of all the products in the database. And next, what we are going to do, we have the product repository get product by ID. So we have the function called get by ID, and or I would use not get by ID. There's a better method called find by ID and dot get. Okay. Next, what we are going to do is delete product by ID. So we have delete by ID. There is a function is already there, delete by ID, and I can pass the ID, and update quantity. So for update, for time being, we can use the save method. So what I'll do, right? So first of all, let's find the product. Okay, so we just write product is product repository dot find, or we can just make use of this. Already we do have the function. So get product by ID, and I would provide the ID. Cool. So I would get the product, and then I would update the price. So product dot set quantity is quantity, and then I would just save it. So this is how we can update it. Okay. So yes, all the functions are ready. Now what next we need to do? We are almost good to go. The only thing, I don't need to modify anything with respect to my controller or API because they would remain same. So what I need to do, somewhere I need to provide certain database properties. Okay. So what are the database properties that I need to mention? I need to mention some bare minimal properties like data source, URL, the username, password, and so on. Let's get started. Right, we can write all these things in application.properties, but one of the other type of file that I personally prefer, and most of the developer do prefers, is YAML file. So rather than writing everything in a properties file, YAML file is a more standardized and it is more readable. So I would create a YAML file here. Application.yml, YML, done. And we got this application.yml file. I would remove all these things from the YAML file. Okay, so let's get started. Let's write the bare minimal database properties that we need. Okay, so first let's type it spring.datasource.url, right? So you see spring.datasource.url. So here, what is the URL? Well, it depends on, right? If I'm using MySQL, I would write, JDBC :MySQL localhost where MySQL runs is 3306 / the name of the database. So we have already created at the beginning only, we have created the database called the product DB. Here we have created this product DB. So we would use the same name as product DB. So let's quickly go and write product_DB. That's cool. Now we need to provide the username and password. So username for my MySQL database is root. So mostly whenever you install MySQL database, that username would be root, and then password. Okay, so password, what would be the password? Password is, in my case, it's password only. This is something that depends on how you have installed your MySQL database. So if you have installed, and while installing you have to provide the password. So if you have provided whatever password that you have provided, that you have to write it here. Don't just copy me that I have written password. You don't need to write password. You have to provide the actual MySQL password. Remember that. That's fine. So we are good to go. Next thing, some other properties that we will write. What are the properties? So something with respect to JPA. So let's write. So a very important thing is, do you want the table to be created? Do you want the table to be created? It will expect that the table is already there. And if you want that the table should be created, you can write a property spring.jpa.generateDDL true. So it will actually create the table for you. What are the other properties that you can set here? There is one more property. It's an optional property again called show SQL. So you can enable this show SQL true, so that the SQL that is getting generated, you would be able to see them as logs. This is pretty much optional, and we are not going to use it in production. This is only fine for development to debug or to trace. That's all. And the other stuff I don't need to write. So that's pretty much everything. And with that, I believe we would be able to run our application. So let's quickly run the application and let's see if the application is running fine or not. Let's run it. Okay, so you can see now, just look at the logs here. So you can see it has created our table products. You can see it has created a table product with these properties: ID, description, product name. You can see the name is product name, not name, because we have done it using the column annotation. And you see other stuff, right? The price, quantity, and the primary key is ID. So you can see all this stuff it has done. I didn't need to create the table. Automatically JPA or Spring Data JPA has created the table. Now, next thing what I'll do, I would test my application. So let's try to add a product and let's see we are able to do it or not. So let's quickly go to my Postman. Where's the Postman? Here. And let's go to the body. Okay, I'll change it to 5,000. We are running this application on 5,000, and I'll go to the body. And okay, so I have to provide an ID. Let's give an ID, and ID is 1. I would provide. That looks fine. And with this, I would try to make an API call. Let's make an API call. And what we get in return is a success. Okay, so what we are getting in return is actually a success. That's cool. And let's actually test if it is been saved in the database or not. Let's quickly have a look, and let's go to the database, use a product underscore DB, and let's execute this. And then let's write select star from products. Cool. Let's execute this and quickly have a look. Yeah, I can see, right? So you can see this is very small. I would just make it a little bigger. You can see we do have the data saved in the database. Well, why the quantity is coming 0? Well, I didn't pass the quantity. So if you look at my data, I actually didn't pass any quantity. So the default value which is coming as 0. I should have passed some data definitely, but I haven't done that. And that's the reason why it's coming 0. Well, I have a way to update the quantity as well. Can I do that? Yes. But did I write all the code? Well, we have. So what I'll do, /products, we need to look at what was the pattern. Let's have a quick look on that. So this was /id/quantity/quantity. Wow, let's quickly do that. So /id, which is 1/quantity / the quantity, which is I want to make it 5. That's cool. And is it a post request or what kind of request? It was a patch mapping. So I would just change my method to patch. And this body doesn't matter. We don't need this body. We can just make a request. And yeah, you can see the quantity has become 5. And let's see if in the database it got updated or not. Let's quickly have a look on the database. Select star from products. Let's execute this and quickly have a look. Right, so you can see the quantity has become 5. And let me check if the other functions are working or not, right? So let's quickly have get method to get all the products. Let's make a call to that. And look at this, I got all the products. So currently I do have only one product. I got that product. If I want to delete that, can I delete that? So I would just select delete, and I would say /1, which is the product ID, and let's make a request. And yeah, we are getting a 200 response. You can see that means it's fine, and we can cross check. If you go here and if I run select star from products and look at this, I don't have any product. It's empty. We don't have any data. Well, it was so simple and easy. And if you look at the logs of your Spring Boot right now, you'll be able to see all the SQL that got generated. You can see that select, insert, update, delete, all the type of operations has been done. And you can see, and also one more thing that you can see, Hibernate. Well, Hibernate could be a new name to you, but Hibernate is the framework that is working behind the scene. So I would discuss about the JPA, Hibernate, Spring Data JPA, all together, how they are working, what is happening behind the scene, the total decode of this entire application in our next episode. I hope in this episode you got an idea how exactly we can implement the database, or how exactly we can store data in the database in a Spring Boot application. And it was quite simple and easy. In the next episode, we would see a lot of other things, including how can we write a custom queries, how can we, do a lot of other stuff. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you in the next episode.